Peeps at the Pan-American Exposition by Mabel Barnes. Sixth visit, Friday, February 12th, 1901. Miss Hale and I arrived at the grounds about 11 o'clock, entering the East Amherst Gate. We went directly to the government building, where we saw a part of the artillery drill. Then we went down to the southern wing of the building, which is occupied by the United States Fish Commission. In the circular corridor of the building are 32 glass tanks containing the salt and freshwater fish propagated by the Commission: eels, crabs, lobsters, and all of the economic and food fishes of the North Atlantic coast and inland waters. The corridor is in semi-darkness, and the tanks are lighted from the back, thus giving a clear view of the aquatic life within. The supply of fresh water comes from Lake Erie, and the salt water is brought in from Woods Hole, Massachusetts, in tank cars. Large settling tanks have been arranged beneath the building, from which it is supplied by means of nickel pumps to the storage tanks above, and thence by gravity to the fish tanks. The water is kept at a low temperature by means of an ice machine. In the center of the building is a large tank which is occupied by a sturgeon and a young seal. Near this tank is a family group of stuffed seals and smaller tanks in which are newly hatched fish. And all about are displayed exhibits of fishing tackle and apparatus of every description, including a rod valued at $2,000, collections of shells and shellfish, oyster shells attached to shoes, lanterns, bottles, twigs, and pipes, and samples of fish products such as canned and dried fish, skins, furs, oils, whalebone, ivory, sponges, mother of pearl, pearl buttons, and pearls. There are also framed pictures of the fish of Puerto Rico and mutoscope pictures showing how fish are caught. After going through the Fish Commission, we ate our lunch in the south arcade of the government building and then went into the main part of the group, visiting first the Department of the Navy in the southwest corner. Here are shown models of men of war, including battleships, monitors, protected and unprotected cruisers, gunboats, rams, torpedo boat destroyers, and ambulance ships. One of the most interesting of these will be a nickel-plated model of the submarine boat Holland. The victorious fleets at Santiago and Manila are separately grouped. A distinguishing feature is a map of the world, 8 by 20 feet, showing in large legible letters the principal maritime ports of the world and the United States Navy yards and stations at home and abroad. The great map is arranged upon a table and covers the globe from the 60th parallel north to the 60th parallel south. Upon it are placed 307 miniature lead models, each representing a battleship, cruiser, gunboat, monitor, torpedo boat, submarine boat, sailing vessel, collier, or tug of the United States Navy, in commission, in ordinary, under repairs, or under construction. The models of cruising vessels are painted white, their torpedo boats green, the colliers and sailing vessels black, and the tugs and yard boats orange. The largest of the models is not more than 1.5 inches long. The position of each model upon the map shows the locations each day of the corresponding vessel of the Navy. Each model flies a pennant with its name printed in bold type. The display of a tiny flag on the model signifies that the corresponding vessel of the Navy is in commission for service, and when no flag is displayed, it signifies that the vessel is laid up in ordinary, under repairs, or under construction. This exhibit is a 20th century kindergarten lesson of the Navy as it is today. Other features are rapid-fire guns of numerous designs, Gatling guns, rifled cannon of various calibers, torpedoes, gun carriages, and shot and shell of all kinds, and models of powder used in modern naval warfare. A model of a dry dock in working order is displayed, showing how the vessels are taken out of their native element for repairs and again floated. The interior of a sick bay is shown. In cases are displayed the arms, uniforms, bedding, food, and dishes used by the officers, sailors, and Marines. On an imitation man of war are wax models of Marine officers and enlisted men. On the walls are views of the Annapolis Naval Academy and a portrait of the Secretary of the Navy, John Davis Long. The southeast corner of the building is occupied by the Post Office Department. This exhibit is the most complete ever shown. There are machines for the canceling stamps and printing postal cards. The displays include models illustrating methods of mail transportation in the United States and our newly acquired territories, models of domestic and international mail steamships, railway postal cars completely furnished, mail wagons, carts and automobiles, mail coaches, and pneumatic mail carriers, an old Rocky Mountain mail coach of historic interest, a mounted mail carrier typical of the famous Pony Express, a Michigan Indian mail carrier with toboggan, large models of rural collection and distributing wagons, in themselves complete post offices on wheels, models showing Cuban, Puerto Rican, and Filipino mail carriers as they were under Spanish rule, models of German mail coaches and carts, uniformed mail carriers of the United States and other countries equipped with the insignia of their respective countries, a collection of all the postage stamps ever used by the United States valued at more than $50,000, collections of stamps, envelopes, and cards, both domestic and foreign, an exhibit illustrating the magnitude of the postal service of the United States as compared with those of France, Germany, and Great Britain, paintings, photographs, and pictures illustrative of mail transportation in this and foreign countries, views of post office buildings, and a portrait of Charles Emery Smith, the Postmaster General. In a case was the stuffed body of the railway clerk's dog Oni, to whose harness are attached hundreds of railway tags showing over how many roads he had traveled. One of the most amusing exhibits is a collection from the Museum of the Dead Letter Office showing the curious things sent through the mails. The rotunda of the building is occupied by the Department of War, Treasury, and State. The War Department, which occupies the southeast section of the rotunda, displays from its Bureau of Engineers maps and reports of the Bureau, models of bridge equipage with a section of a bridge, torpedo cases, batteries, models of embankments, locks, breakwaters, fortifications, and dredging apparatus. The Ordnance Department shows the 4 types of seacoast defense guns, a historical collection of cannon and small arms showing the development of ordnance, samples of mountain, field, siege, and seacoast artillery of the present day mounted on the most improved steel carriages, machine and dynamite guns, projectiles of all kinds, rifles, pistols, guns, and swords used in modern warfare. The Quartermaster's Department displays wax figures showing uniforms, equipment, sets of colors, standards, and guidons, and illustrations of means of transportation. The medical service shows a complete set of Army hospital medical supplies, surgical instruments and apparatus, models, photographs, and plans of military hospitals, and many other things used in the modern Army hospital service. The Signal Corps exhibit exhibits wireless telegraphy, telegraph, and telephone lines, war balloon trains, etc., etc. The West Point Military Academy shows portraits of famous graduates together with the arms, uniforms, and textbooks used in the academy. The Department of Treasury occupies 2 sections of the rotunda. We explored the southwest section first. A special feature of this exhibit is a lighthouse fully equipped and in operation, 45 feet high under the central dome of the building, being an exact reproduction of one of the best-known lighthouses on the Atlantic coast. There are also models of lighthouses, fog bells, lanterns showing styles of construction. The mint is represented by a coin press showing the coining of money at the rate of 90,000 coins an hour, each coin being struck with a force equal to a weight of 100 tons. This is kept in operation by making souvenir medals. Here also are shown specimens of every coin issued by the United States, and some of the finest made by other governments, and a complete set of medals struck by the Mint at Philadelphia. The Bureau of Engraving and Printing shows a plate printing press turning out souvenirs, a complete series of currency issued by the government from a 10-cent piece to a $10,000 gold note, such as United States bonds, national bank notes, gold and silver certificates, and treasury greenbacks. Cases containing old treasury account books, including the first ledger and journal kept by the treasurer of the colonial government, the oldest government record in existence, collections of internal revenue stamps, and a big knife, which was used from 1866 to 1899 for cutting bills in two when turned in for redemption, the blade of which is estimated to have passed through bills representing a face value of $6 billion. On the walls are portraits of the secretaries of the Treasury, including Alexander Hamilton I and Lyman J. Gage the last. At 3:30 p.m., Miss Hale and I witnessed 2 drills by the United States Hospital Corps, demonstrating first aid to the wounded and improvised methods of transporting the wounded. We also went through the Model Brigade Field Hospital and camp of the Hospital Corps, visiting the tents used as kitchens, mess rooms, offices, dispensaries, and hospital wards. We then went back to the government to finish looking at the Treasury exhibits in the northwest section of the rotunda. In the United States Coast and Geodetics Survey exhibit is a complete model of a vessel, especially constructed for deep sea soundings, showing the sounding lines and apparatus used in measuring the depth of the water, maps and charts, and the copper plate press used in making them, a model showing the depth of the sea in the bays of North America and the Gulf of Mexico, a tidal model showing the uses of an automatic tide gauge in making a continuous record of the rise and fall of the tide, and of a tide indicator in informing passing vessels as to the height of the tide and whether falling or rising. In a case are the United States standard weights and measures. I watched the making of a map on the copper plate press and secured one as a souvenir. In the Marine Hospital Service Department, I talked with one of the men in charge of the exhibit, who explained every part to me. There are shown the interiors of a ward, an operating room with X-ray apparatus showing the wonderful advances in that line of science, and a disinfector of a hospital, models of interstate quarantine stations in the Delaware River illustrating the care of the government in preventing the introduction and spread of epidemic diseases, a model of Camp Perry, a yellow fever camp in Florida, cultures showing the bacteria and bacilli of various diseases, and instruments used in operations. The life-saving service is also under the jurisdiction of the Treasury Department. A special station has been erected on the shore of the lake where daily exhibitions are given. After going through the Treasury Department, I rested while Miss Hale went around the rest of the building. Next, we went through the Philippine exhibit and then went down to the lake to eat our supper. On the way to the Midway, we walked through the New York State building. We hurried to the Indian Congress in order to explore the village before dark. Here are congregated 700 Indians representing 42 distinct tribes living in their aboriginal and primitive state. We walked about among the teepees, having an amusing experience with a papoose who thanked Miss Hale with a scowl for the penny she gave him. We watched the blanket, basket, and pottery makers. We visited the Indian Museum, looked at the outside of the ceremonial house in which the Indian dances are given, and finally settled ourselves in the grandstand to watch the evening performance. The main features of this were the grand entrance, Indians in hundreds, the first on horseback, others on foot, the introduction to the audience of the 15 famous war chiefs, including Geronimo, wearing the hereditary sign of Apache chieftainship, a yellow cap, straight as an arrow, 88 years old, once the greatest and most vicious war chief of his time, now a United States prisoner of war. The entrance of Winona, the Sioux Indian maiden and champion rifle shot of the world, who demonstrated her right to the title by picking 20 glass balls in 15 seconds from a moving board, the world record. Indian races, and finally, a realistic sham battle, including the pitching of the wigwams, the skirmish, the retreat of the squaws, the rattle-clatter of musketry, the rosy flash amid the smoke, the shrill cries of daring, the groans of the wounded, the defeat and retreat of the foes, the chant of victory. We remained in the Indian Congress until 9 o'clock, when we left to have a ride on the scenic railway. On this, we passed through electrically illuminated tunnels, showing some scene from Siberia or New Jersey. It might be a greater sensation to drop from the top of the electric tower than it is to shoot down the incline of the railway, but it would not be as safe, and it would be far from as pleasurable. Before coming home at 10 o'clock, we took our custom stroll up and down the Midway.